Good afternoon. Good afternoon, good people. Welcome to an afternoon session of Dr. M's Table. And I'm used to being your early morning motivator. Today I'm your afternoon motivator and facilitator of Dr. M's Table. Come on in. Come on in and let's talk for a minute. Good afternoon, Cooper. Good afternoon. Hey guys, come on in. We're going to do a quick Dr. M's Table for the month of September. Hey, Robert Fuller, I'll just greet you as you come in. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. How's the weather in Georgia, Cooper? Hey, Miss Reba. Good afternoon. Hey, Robert. Good afternoon. Come on, click like and share this with your followers. Hey, Dr. Bryant. How are you this afternoon? Click like, click share. Share this. We're going to be talking today on Dr. M's Table. I just want to give you a quick rundown of 10 reasons why counseling does not work for some people. All right, click like, click share, let's talk. Dr. M's Table, 10 reasons why counseling does not work for some people. Hey, Miss Angela, how are you? 10 reasons why counseling does not work for some people. Hello, Marlene. Hello, hello. Let me share this with my people if I can while you're coming on. I'll greet you. Thank you for sharing, Marlene. I appreciate you. Come on in, guys. Click like, click share. We're going to be talking about 10 reasons why counseling does not work for some people. 10 reasons why counseling does not work for some people. Oh, it's sunny and beautiful in Georgia. Excellent. Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right. 10 reasons why counseling does not work for some people. Listen, for those of you who are new and joining Dr. M's Table, hey, Dr. Perkins. My name is Dr. Miranda Y. Pearson, and I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor. I have been a licensed clinical mental health counselor since 2007. And you can go to my website, which is www.divine, A as in apple, P as in Paul, P as in Paul, T, 4, that's the number 4, u.com. That's divineappointment4u.com. And you can see all of the other certifications and all of that good stuff. But I wanted to come to you on today with this special Dr. M's Table in the month of September, because usually between October and December, there's a new onslaught of counselees in my office, in my business. And that's a good thing, obviously. But I wanted to just talk about some of the reasons why people don't stick to counseling. All right. Why counseling does not work for some people. Because I think there's a misnomer sometimes when people get counseling for whatever reason, they're seeking counseling. They go away sometimes feeling dejected, or they feel like, it didn't work. So I just wanted to give voice to some things that I have observed over the last, however many years I've been in practice, as to why I believe that counseling does not work for some people. All right. Okay, let's get started. I think we're here. All right. The number one reason, my number one reason why counseling doesn't work for some people is discipline. Okay? Discipline. So what is discipline? I'm big on definitions. I'm big on understanding. I need for you to understand, what the word means, because sometimes we throw words around and people nod their head and they say yes and they say, amen, or they give credence to it, but they really don't understand what it means. So to be a disciplined person, you are a person who follows the rules, and there's a certain code of conduct that govern your behavior, right? And so when I'm talking about discipline, I'm talking about people who lack what I call stick-to-itiveness. If that's a word, I just made it up. I created a word. They lack stick-to-itiveness. They don't like to stick to it. They're not disciplined enough to follow through. They'll make the appointment. Usually people make appointments because they're desperate, right? They feel like they've come to the end of their rope, the end of the world. And so they'll make an appointment, and, they're eager to come to that very first appointment. The very first appointment is what I call in my practice, the interview, or it's where I take what's called a biopsychosocial assessment, biopsychosocial, and in some cases, spiritual assessment. So I am evaluating the biology of you, your lineage, everything that's going on in your environment, your family, what happens psychologically, socially, spiritually. So we take some time, anywhere between 1 hour and 90 minutes, gathering information, right? The biopsychosocial assessment is the very first appointment. Well, after that appointment, where you've poured out your heart and you've told the counselor what it is that you need to be seen for, that's when the discipline comes. And I'm not just saying just discipline with seeing me, but even with homework, if the counselor gives you homework, you have to have discipline in completing it and actually doing what it is that you guys talked about in the session. So number one reason why counseling does not work for some people, it's discipline, okay? Clients make one appointment and then they get disappointed because they don't think it's working, and then they don't work on what's discussed in the session, and so there goes that. The number two reason that counseling does not work for some people is consistency, and I think Robert Fuller, you typed that in there, and that's true. Consistency. And being consistent is the state of behavior that's always happening and you're behaving in the very same manner. So consistency. So if you and I have talked and I say what days and times are best for you, and you say Tuesdays at 6 p.m. All right. So Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Usually when people call and they have a certain situation, I recommend that you do 6 weeks of weekly appointments, and then we can assess after the 6 weeks. Then we go bi-weekly, which means every 2 weeks, and then we may go 4 weeks bi-weekly, 6 weeks bi-weekly. And if you're doing really well, then we'll go to a maintenance phase of monthly. And then if you're doing really well monthly, maybe 6 months of a maintenance phase, which is monthly, then we can go to what's called quarterly check-ins. And so you just check in every 3 months. Everybody needs a processing day, a processing session where you're just checking in, making sure everything is going well, making sure that what you've been taught, the tools in your toolbox are still working for you, making sure that you are able to process things in the manner in which you and I, or you and your counselor decided that's best for you. Okay. So number two is consistency. It becomes tedious to some people. And because we live in a microwave society, people want things to happen yesterday. Let me just give you a little bit of insight on that. All right. It's just like losing weight. I started an exercise program September the 6th. And you guys know that I've talked about this for, the last 2 years at least, but I have not eaten meat in a while, right? I found out that I wasn't getting enough proteins in the beans that I eat, and I don't like vegan meat. I don't like the texture of it. I don't like the frozen stuff. I don't like the stuff that you buy in the grocery store. So I wasn't getting enough protein. Well, I started a exercise program on the 6th. No shakes, no supplements. I don't want to live a life where I'm have to take a pill for the rest of my life, or I have to do protein shakes. I think they're gross. I just wanted to eat food that's good food for me, and I don't mind, the workout. So I started this program September the 6th, where I'm eating basically 2 cups of vegetables and 4 ounces of protein or less a day, twice a day, 45 minutes of cardio, 1 gallon of water. In the very first week of this program, I lost 8 pounds. Now, that's great. Hallelujah. Praise Jesus. But the consistency has to be there. This is not a diet. It's not a fad. It's a lifestyle, right? So now I have to make sure that my mind is renewed and is transformed so that I can become a consistent person and a consistent recipient of the blessings and the greatness that comes along with eating well and exercising and drinking plenty of water, right? So to date, I've lost 16 pounds, right? But years, I'm thinking I'm eating great. I'm eating healthy. I'm really not a cake person. Potato chips were my weakness, but I found out that I wasn't getting enough protein, and I was eating good, but sometimes the wrong foods in a combination. But you need to be consistent. So getting back to counseling, the consistency of being a counselee is what people struggle with. They'll come 1 time, they'll come 2 times, they may even come 3 times, but the consistency is what's lacking, and that's why sometimes you don't see results. All right, that's number 2. Number 3, no accountability. So what is accountability? It's responsibility. It's a duty to deal with something. And when you're accountable, you're required, you have expectations, you have actions, you have decisions. You have somebody that says, hey, did you go to your therapy appointment? Hey, did you do your homework? Hey, no accountability. I run into a lot of people who make appointments and they cancel, and people get upset with me. I'm a professional, and counseling is my occupation. So when you make an appointment and you don't cancel your appointment within 24 hours of your appointment, then I'm going to charge you a no-show fee. Yeah, because I could have put somebody else in that slot. So when this happens 1 to 3 times, I think 3 is my cutoff limit with people with no-show, then I dismiss you from my practice and you'll just have to start all over again. And when I say dismiss you, and I'm talking about people who had a consistent appointment, but there's no accountability that on their end and they don't show up, well, then your slot goes to someone else. And I'm unapologetic about that. When you go to your doctor, especially when it's a specialist, and if you are 10 minutes late or you 15 minutes late, they don't want to see you, but they're still going to charge you for that appointment, especially when you didn't call ahead of time and make provisions to change the date or to change your time. There has to be some accountability, all right, and some responsibility. So that's the number 3 reason why people don't do well with counseling. There is no accountability. They don't listen to the counselor, or they don't listen to their friends when they say, hey, you need to see a counselor, all right? Somebody said Dr. M doesn't play. No, I don't. All right, the blame game. Number 4 is a reason why counseling does not work for some people. So what is the blame game? It's when you assign blame to everyone else for your issues, your problems, your mindset, your idiosyncrasies, your behavior, and you take no responsibility for your self-healing. So, and I'm going to give you an example of this. I find this a lot in women, and men too, but I'm going to use women because most of the time women call me and they have issues with marriage, right? Nothing wrong with that, but that's a totally separate counseling appointment. So one of the things that I tell women when they call, I say, listen, your husband is not here to defend himself. You're going to need to make a couples appointment, a marriage couples appointment, all right? But when you come into an individual counseling session, the number 1 question, and my counselees will tell you, I ask you is, what is your part in the demise of the marriage? Okay? I know what you said that he did. I know what you said that you think he is. But what's your part in the demise of this particular relationship? So blame game. You know, I'm like I am because my mama was this. Well, when we accept mom where she is, and we accept responsibility for the fact that, okay, so I have arrested development. I actually stopped growing at age 16. I'm 35 and I'm still blaming my mama for my 35-year-old issues. It's a real big deal. So the blame game is number 4 reason why counseling doesn't work for people. They can't get out of their head that nobody else is responsible for where they are in their life but them. Period. Point blank. You could have had a crappy father. You could have had a sucky mother. And you could have had the worst family in the world. But the bottom line is you're an adult and you have to take responsibility for your part in your life that's not working. All right? Blame game. All right. Number 5, fear. So what is fear? Of course, we're churchy and we say false evidence appearing real. It is the unpleasant feelings or memories triggered by perceptions of danger. So I want to stop right there. Perceptions of danger. Everybody has their own perception of what they think is going on whenever, okay? Your perceptions are altered by your experiences. I want you to write that down. Your perceptions are altered by your experiences, whether they're good or they're bad. It doesn't necessarily mean that you've had a traumatized life to have a perception that's muddy, cloudy, and unclear. But when you are in a counseling session, counseling brings up unpleasant feelings, unpleasant memories, and it's triggered by your perception of that individual thing that you have gone through or you've experienced it. And guess what? It can either be real or imagined. So your perception of a thing doesn't necessarily mean that that's the truth. Okay? Your perception of a thing doesn't necessarily mean that that's the truth. And when you are prone and programmed to only think about the trauma that you've endured, 9 times out of 10, you will forget good times. So I have a lot of people who I see excuse me, my nose. It's sinus season. But I have a lot of people that I see who come in, they can't remember anything positive about their childhood because they're so focused on the trauma and so focused on blaming someone for the state of their present situation. They don't care how long ago it's been. So you can have a 50-year-old woman who's ticked off with her mom for something that happened when she was 10. And because of that perception of what she assumes happened, has assumed, whether it's real or imaginary, this now has conjured up, in most cases, a spirit of fear. Okay? Because you can have fear. It's an emotion. Fear is not a bad thing to have. It actually keeps you out of trouble. But sometimes when people don't deal with the fear, which is the unpleasant memories that's triggered by all of these things that's happened, then it becomes a spirit of fear. And that's when we have to cast it out. But I'm talking general counseling, okay? So this is the 5th reason why people don't really do well in counseling. They don't want to face what has happened in the past. And most of the time, they don't want to face their part in it. Okay? So what happens is you have these rabbit hole ventures and you have people who come because they have committee meetings that go on in their head and they have perceptions. Remember, either real or imaginary, and they don't want to face the truth. I can sit across from a person, or I can sit across in the screen on Zoom from a person, and we can process a feeling, an activity, an event, a thought, and we will do this 1, 2, 3 sessions. But because behavior is learned, and it's hard sometimes to break a learned behavior, they will go back to the behavior that's comfortable and familiar, which is rabbit hole chasing and allowing the committee members to meet in their head. And because they get frustrated, because remember I said counseling is more about the counselee doing the work, not the counselor. So because they don't want to do the work, then they say counseling is not working for me. Okay? Fear. Number 5. Number 6, comparison. You have people who go to counseling and they try to compare their counseling experience with someone else's experience. They try to get the same results. And most of the time, those people are ignoring the journey, which means counseling takes work. All right? It's work on the counselee, not the counselor. The counselor works, but the counselee is doing the work because you're the one that's coming to get help, to get better. And so you look at homegirl over here who has praised her counselor and said, man, I've gotten good results with her. She's the bomb. And honestly, guys, and this is not to brag or boast, but most of my clientele comes from word of mouth. Now, here's the deal. Somebody may say, man, Dr. M is so awesome. She's a great counselor. And then they call, right? But you don't have the same consistency, discipline, tenacity. You don't have the same drive as your friend or the other person. So you don't get the same results. So then I become the bad guy, which is fine. You know, I don't care. I have Teflon skin. But there's a comparison, right? And you know, it looks glamorous. And as a matter of fact, you know, this is like the thing to do. Get a counselor, which is great. I think everyone should have a counselor, someone that they can process emotions, feelings, behaviors, mannerisms. I think is excellent. But you shouldn't get a counselor because it's glamorous. And because that's what everybody else is doing. And that's the problem. All right? So that can be an issue. The number 6 reason why counseling does not work for some people is because they are comparing their experiences, their results with someone else's and not doing the same thing that someone else did to get positive results. All right? Okay. Number 7. I think I'm on number 7. Y'all keep me in line. The 7th reason why counseling does not work for some people is dishonesty. Ugh. And this is the thing, you know, I am in a peculiar position because I am a licensed professional counselor, which means that I have a set of rules and governances that I have to adhere to by the state, but I'm also prophetic. Right? So I know when people are lying to me. Now, it's not very professional, nor, you know, as a prophet, we are encouraging, we're exhorting, we're educating. It's not my job to, you know, look in the screen or look at a person and say, you are a liar, right? Because, you know, part of my job is getting to the root of why people come and why they lie. But I do know that people lie. Is this my little camera? I do know that people lie to me in counseling, okay? Just because I don't say that I know that you're a liar doesn't mean that I don't know that you are a liar. That's the number 7 reason why counseling doesn't work. People are dishonest. And this is what people have the nerve to say to me. And I think I've gotten to the point where it's humorous. At first it used to really bug me and it irritated me to the point where I got angry. But now it's, you know, so they'll say things like, well, I was waiting for you to pick me up in the spirit. Huh? Listen, I'm not a genie in a bottle. You don't just pay money and then pull the lever and to see, you know, what prophetic word is going to come out. You said that you were coming to counseling, which means that we're going to get to the root of your issue. You're not coming to pay me money and to sit there and try to figure out if I'm a true prophet or not because you didn't pick me up in the spirit. That actually really happens. People say that to me, or you didn't pick me up in the spirit, or you didn't call me. That's not my responsibility to call you. You're the counselee. You're the client. You need a session, pick up the phone and make an appointment. So I think sometimes lines get blurred. People come in intentionally not disclosing information. They intentionally deceive. I've had somebody be a client for like 10 weeks. And then they said, well, let me just tell you the truth. Are you kidding me? You should have told me this on the very first session. Let me just tell you the truth. That's why we're not getting anywhere. So let me just encourage you all that are listening right now. If you're going to get counseling, make sure when you have that very first session that you tell the truth. I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't have a heaven or hell to put you in. And I'm not judging you. That's not my job. But you came to me for help. And I cannot help you if you're not honest. Okay? I can't say that enough. The number 7 reason why counseling does not work for some people is because they are intentionally dishonest. They are deceitful and they come for ill gain, and it does not work. And it says a lot about their character and their behavior. And I can understand why they need counseling, honestly. All right. Counseling only works when you are honest. And if you're coming for a prophetic word or, the genie in the bottle thing, I'm not your girl. Now, if we're counseling and prophecy or a prophetic proclamation, a word of knowledge comes out, so be it. But to sit across from me and so what is the Lord saying? I don't know. What did they say? What did the Lord say to you when you made the appointment? What are we here for? It's not that kind of party. All right. So the number 7 reason, dishonesty. All right. Number 8, projection. Whew. I can write a whole book, and I probably will, on this topic of projection. It is so bad with women. Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Projection. And that is the process of displacing one's feelings onto another person. So what you feel about yourself, you want to displace that onto me. Which is crazy, right? I can have people as a client coming to me, but when the rubber meets the road and it starts getting hot, and I'm using, as a metaphor, then what they do is start projecting. So you know how people do when they avoid you, they're cagey, they stop speaking to you. What are you projecting here? So really how you feel about you're projecting onto me. Happens all the time. And you need to know that the use of projection is a defense mechanism. So I don't get offended. Again, I'm not a newbie in this game. I've been doing this for a while. I don't get offended because honestly, they don't just do it with me. They probably do it with everybody. But I get the brunt of it because I know people's secrets. Make sense? So the projection that how they feel about them, or the measure, how they measure themselves, or how they look at themselves, or how they assess themselves, they project that onto me. Now, if we're in a session, I can catch that and we'll address it. But 9 times out of 10, they'll just stop coming. No warning, no, nothing. And then avoid. So they'll stop coming and they'll avoid. Now, I already know the people that owe you money, they always avoid. Y'all know that. People that owe you money, they avoid you. But I'm talking about the people who use projection. They avoid. And it's a defense mechanism. So, I've had people get angry with me because they're really angry with themselves. Defense mechanism. It's called projection. All right? Okay. And I think this is number 9. Number 9, perception versus perspective. So your perception is the ability to hear and see using all 5 of your senses. so that you can regard, understand, or interpret something, right? It's your mental impression when you have a perception of something, all right? When you have a perspective, it's your attitude towards something. It's your point of view. So I want you to keep this in mind, because this is the reason why I even mentioned perception versus perspective. Most people that we know have suffered trauma. The problem with people is that they've never dealt with their trauma. And as they age, their trauma becomes more pronounced and it has exacerbated. Because I've given this example before. When you go through a trauma and you don't deal with it, it just piles on, right? And then when you get to be in your 40s, there's no more room to stuff stuff. So now you erupt. You either erupt in sickness in your body or mental malady starts to happen, and people around you can see it better than you can admit it. All right. So people start noticing that you have more anxiety, or you have more stress, or you're more irritable, or you're more down and out. They have to do more pulling to get you to talk. You start exhibiting bizarre behavior. You may cry a lot, right? So this trauma that you've never dealt with, right, becomes post-traumatic stress. Now it's trauma that's you've never dealt with. So trauma skews both your perception and your perspective, because now you look at everything through a traumatic lens and not through a healed lens, which is why you have people, and I'll just use for an example, the spirit of rejection. If a person was rejected as a child and they've never dealt with that, and then they became a young adult, teenager, and now that inward hurt becomes outward hurt. Now that you are a full-blown adult, because you've never dealt with rejection, everything that people do appears to you to be rejection. So for instance, and I'm just using, this is off the cuff. You start a t-shirt shop and nobody buys your t-shirt. Well, certain people that you think should buy your t-shirt don't buy your t-shirt. You assume that they have rejected you because you have trauma about rejection in the past. And that's not so. I was thinking the other day, I took the whole summer of 2020 and sewed into people's life because the Lord told me to do that. And I'm not talking about, I did send a lot of cash apps, but what I did was buy a lot of products. I bought books and dresses and jackets and shirts, like from people who are starting their business. I wanted to plant a seed into people who were beginning their business. Now, here's what I noticed about people. They beg, they ask, they never give back in some cases. In some cases, not everybody. Now, if I were rejected or had a spirit of rejection, I would be mad. I mean, mad at people who I've sown seeds into and they ain't sown back into me. But you do have people with that attitude, right? Their perception and their perspective is skewed. I said all of that to say everybody is selling something these days. Everybody has a book. Everybody has a conference. Everybody has a podcast. Everybody has a live. Everybody has a ministry. There is no way humanly possible that you can support all of the people that you know. And so people who are mature and could really have a healthy perception and perspective do not get offended by that. But people who are looking at things from a skewed lens or from a trauma skewed lens, they are always offended. So, the ninth reason why people don't go through with counseling is because they look through a skewed lens. Their perception and their perspective is absolutely off. So again, you're going to the sessions and I'm gonna tell you, and I'm gonna give you an example of that when I say perception and perspective is off as it pertains to counseling. We talk about things in the session. And then at the end, I say, okay, before our next session, I want you to do these 3 things. Person, if they're really diligent, they'll write it down. If they say, okay, I got it. Then we have the next session. They don't do the 3 things. They come up with 2 excuses. And then you can tell during the session, they're angry. You know why they're angry? Because you can't build on things that you didn't put into practice to do. So then by the 3rd session or the 4th session, and they're saying, well, I just don't feel any different. You're not putting in the work. But because they look at everything through a skewed trauma lens, they really, really have all this stuff warring in the inside. They just want you to fix them. And I'm telling you, counseling does not fix you. It shows you what's broken. Counseling does not fix you. It highlights what's broken in you, about you, through you, around you, before you. And you have to do the work, beloved. Okay? You have to do the work. All right. The 10th reason. How's my time? I'm doing great on time. The 10th reason why counseling does not work for some people are unspoken expectations that equal poor communication. And that's just not with your counselor. That's with anybody that you're in a relationship with. People pride themselves on being great communicators, but you know what they are? They are good talkers. They talk a lot. They talk a good game. They have the gift of gab. But when you have a gift of great communication, you are able to explain your expectations, verbalize them so people can understand them, and you're able to receive the expectations of those that you also want to be in a relationship with. Anybody that you know that has had counseling with me, after our very first session, at the end of the very first session, I always ask them, what 3 things do you want to obtain out of counseling? I need to know your expectations of counseling. Why do I just stick with 3? Because you're going to overload people with 10. 1 is not enough, and 3 is a really good number. Let's start with that. These are your objectives. These are your goals. We want to start with that. And that gives us both something to work with, where you feel like you're not so overwhelmed, and that's good. We can play with those 3 things. Unspoken expectations equal poor communication. What are your expectations? They are your beliefs, things that you want to achieve. Communication is the exchange of information. So a lot of times people are mad because they feel like counseling hasn't worked. But again, you're not honest, and you did not adequately display your expectations of this relationship. This counselor relationship. What is it that you want out of this experience? And these are and I'm not knocking the people who come and they say, and I say to them, what is it that you want to get out of counseling? Or why are you here? That's the very first question. What brings you here today? I don't know. Okay. So as we begin the conversation, prompted by the biopsychosocial assessment, we begin to formulate some ideas, some common themes. We put things together. And by the end of that first session, I say, what 3 things do you expect from counseling? And now my prayer is that you are able to verbalize, based on what we've talked about for 1 whole hour, what it is now that you think that you need out of counseling. And the people who do not adequately verbalize or communicate their expectations are always disappointed. Now, that's not on me. That's on you. All right? So, today, we've talked about 10 reasons that counseling does not work for some people. I'll go over them briefly again. Number 1 is discipline. Okay? People are not disciplined. They don't want to put in the work. They don't want to do what it takes to get healed, get free. Number 2, consistency. You have got to be on time and you've got to do it consistent. I'm thinking about athletes. I was telling you about me losing the weight. You've got to be consistent. You can't just lose the 8 pounds and just go back to eating the way that you did, because it's not the 8 pounds, you're going to gain them back. So if you're not consistent about doing the work in counseling, you're not going to get anything from it. Discipline, consistency, accountability. You need someone that you're accountable to. You need someone saying, hey, did you go to your appointment? Hey, did you make your appointment? Hey, did you do your homework? And usually that's the counselor. So people get mad, right? Blame game. I have one client that I know, gosh. I know probably Saturday night or Sunday morning that they're going to cancel that week. Yes, I do. Because remember, I'm prophetic, but I'm not your prophet. I'm your counselor. But I know based on the last session and based on the attitude, because once you begin to tell people, hey, listen, you might have to go to your doctor. Your metabolic panel may be off. You may not just be depressed. You may have to get a full physical. Check your serotonin levels. Check your dopamine. They don't like that. And so when you are getting closer and closer to truths, you're getting closer and closer to behaviors, you're getting closer and closer to making people realize that maybe I am the common denominator in some of these issues that I have, they don't like that. And so they cancel. So when they cancel, their life goes awry, and in 2 or 3 weeks, everything hits the fan, and then they come back. Well, now we've got to plow again, right? Accountability. Blame game. Blaming everybody else for your situation. Fear, the unpleasant memories, the feelings that are triggered, remember by your perception. Comparison, comparing your experiences with everyone else. Dishonesty, intentionally not enclosing the correct information. You have projection. That's the process of displacing your feelings onto someone else. Remember, we talked about perception versus perspective. And then number 10, unspoken expectations, which is all day long, poor communication. Now, does anybody have any questions and or comments? Questions and or comments. Let me look really quick before I let you go and see if I have any questions and or comments about your counseling experiences, what you experienced when you went to counseling. How did it go for you? Not necessarily with me, but how did it go with you? What are your expectations from counseling? What went well? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have anything to add to my list? I did 10, but there may be 15. I don't know. All right. She says discipline, consistency, and accountability are required. Absolutely. Miss Miller said, Miss Felicia said, Dennis charged me several times for no shows and I will charge you for a no-show because I could have stuck somebody else in that appointment time. And guess what? This is my livelihood. You're messing with my money. Don't do that. Yeah, I'm going to charge you every time. All right. Yep. Stop the blame game. Ouch. You're speaking truth. Arrested development. You know, that's my thing. People are very comfortable being a victim. They are. This is good. Thank you. Truth, guilty. It takes work. It does, Cooper. It really, really does. All right. You be broke. You have to put the work in. You do. They do filibuster. Thank you for sharing. You're very welcome. Love the transparency. Awesome. Time is money. Dr. Perkins, you don't know? You better ask somebody. I have learned, yes, time is money. And people will suck you dry for your time and then look at you like you're crazy, right? Okay, listen, in October for Dr. M's Table, I want to invite some villagers. And I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that, so bear with me. But I do want to talk about in October this issue of menopause or premenopause, because I have ladies come to me, and it varies between the age of 35 and I'll say 60, who after I take the biopsychosocial assessment and we assess everything, I don't know if you're truly suffering from anxiety, or is this a reaction or a symptom of menopause. So I want to just give you some information about menopause. Guys, you may want to tune into this Dr. M's table because you have wives. I know my husband is appreciative and we have these discussions, but it's a serious thing. And I think a lot of times what women do is they go to the doctor and they can't articulate what is actually happening to their body. And remember, this is nothing against doctors. I have some super cool doctor friends, but they treat symptoms. They don't get to the root of the issue. So if you go to the doctor and you say, my head has been hurting, they might give you a CT scan. They might talk about, hey, have you been using Tylenol? They might even say, they're going to root out, right? And that's good. So they'll ask you about your glasses. They'll ask you, where is it hurting? So they can determine if it's a sinus headache or if it's a true stress headache. What I'm saying is sometimes we have these things going on in our body and we assume, how do you spell assume? It makes an ass out of you and me. We assume that something is really, really wrong. And sometimes you can go to the doctor and you can get a prescription or medication, and that's not it. That's not it. I think the key to most of our ills and most of the things that's going on with us is proper diet, exercise, and getting, guys, I know, 8 full hours of sleep. When you don't get the proper rest and nourishment for your brain, it does not function. And remember that your brain is the CPU, the central processing unit of your body. So if you're not feeding it, if you're not giving it adequate rest, if you're not drinking water, which I think our bodies is made up over 90% of water, you're not doing those things, you're not really treating your body correctly. And so our body breaks down, it has all these ills and everything that's going on. And when you go to the doctor, they prescribe based on what you say is wrong. And sometimes you can't adequately explain what's going on with you. So I want to talk about it. I want to bring it up because honestly, I know a lot of seasoned saints and none of them, not one, has ever sat down with the younger generation and said, let me tell you what's getting ready to happen to your body. And I'm not saying that you don't have aunties and grandmas, and I'm talking about as a collective. I'm not seeing a live on it. I've not seen anybody talk about it in a session on a Sunday morning. Haven't seen a Wednesday night Bible study. Hey, let's talk about menopause. I'm just saying it needs to be a discussion. So I'm going to do it. We're going to have a discussion and we're going to talk about it because I do know people who suffer unnecessarily. And they think that something is really, really wrong with them. And one of the main symptoms of menopause is anxiety. And so what do? They come to me. I'm anxious. I'm suffering from anxiety. Baby, you in menopause. And it could be a little bit of anxiety too, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go out and get a prescription for anxiety meds. But we'll talk about all of that because again, I am a counselor and I know my scope of my profession. Then you have your doctor who has their scope of their profession. What we should all be doing is working together. But the most beautiful thing about where we live and what we live, how we live today, we live in an information age. So you need to read. You guys aren't reading. And I'm not talking about reading Wikipedia and reading everybody else's Facebook posts. I'm talking about journals, evidence-based journals. You need to be reading some stuff that's not fluff. And so let's talk about that. All right. I'm looking at my calendar for October and I can't tell you because life happens. I want to thank you guys for your concern, your prayers. I know you read my Facebook post about my husband. God is absolutely spectacular. The man of God is amazing. And that's just all I got to say about that. I don't know which Monday we will have Dr. M's table. I'm thinking around the 11th, maybe, or the 18th. Yeah, probably the 11th or the 18th, but we'll see. All right. I love you guys with the love of the Lord. Does anybody else have any questions? Miss Alma says she agrees. You agree about the menopause. Absolutely. It needs to be a discussion. And I think too, let me just say this and then I'll log off. I think we've been made to think of menopause as being the other evil auntie that visits us. And it's a thing of shame. And it shouldn't be shame. Have lipstick on my teeth. You shouldn't have shame around being in a menopausal state. All right? All right. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. I want you all to have an amazing day on purpose. And as always, shalom, shalom.